today, you guys have a treat. We have a guest speaker here today, and I was thinking about when I met this guy, February, March, I can't remember. It was cold outside, that's what I remember. My world's been a bit of a blur this past few months with my wife's situation, home remodel, 2 organizations, whatever. But it's been crazy. So I don't remember exactly when we met, but met this guy. He was interested in potentially coming to work for us at Core. And I was like, wow, that's interesting, because he had just graduated Moody Bible College, which Moody Bible College and Core are probably not the closest connection that you would ever imagine in your life. Moody's a pretty conservative Bible college, and so, but the first time I met him and got a chance to talk to him, I got to hear his heart, and I loved it. Like, sometimes I think we're really quick to, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to the church and all this. I'd say this, man. If this is what the future of the church is going to look like, the church is in good hands. I'm optimistic of the future. What I love about Phillip is not just, one, I'm jealous because not only has he done Journey, he actually led Journey at our church this past time, and just the insight that he has, self-awareness, and just, I don't know, man, it's just like, I wish it didn't take me to like 43 to get what I feel like this guy's already got. And so I'm excited for that, but I'm also, just his passion. When my wife and I were at lunch with him and he started talking about what it would be like to be a pastor, it made me think of how I kind of take that for granted, that passion and that zeal and that desire to really impact and lead people into truth. Like sometimes you do it for a minute and it just becomes somewhat routine. And so we both walked away and talked about the conviction we felt after hanging out. And then, but the thing I love the most is, I knew coming to Core wouldn't have been easy. And I watched him do hard work and be willing to stretch himself. Y'all can do some stretching, okay? You know who I'm talking about if you're in the room. I watched him stretch himself, but I also people love him. And that's why I was telling him in the back. I was like, look, man, if people didn't like you, like, I've heard him say, like, I can't wait till that sucker's out of here. Probably said something other than sucker. But anyway, Phillip's getting ready to go to Fuller Theological Seminary to continue his education, and we're sad to lose him. We're sad that he's not going to be around anymore. But excited for the call that God has on his life, excited for what's next for him. And so I'm excited for y'all to hear his passion. Man, if you've been in church for a minute, I pray open your heart, because I think he has a revelation today. And that's another thing. This guy, he has wisdom beyond his years. Typically that means that he hears from the Holy Spirit and he speaks to the words that are not his own. And so get ready, because you're not just going to hear sermons today. You have a word from God coming to you. So, Phillip, come on up, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Wow, that's quite an introduction. Yeah. It's kind of ironic for the topic we're going to be talking about today, because I'm kind of starting with a question that's been a big part of my life, and I think a big part of a big question I think people in the church ask as well. And we're going to be looking at Romans. And why don't we just turn there, because I'm going to just kick this right off in Romans 7, which is going to be kind of our central text here. Right, it's a heavy chapter. So let me read Romans 7, 18 to 19. I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. And this has been a question, the question of, why can't I get it right? Why do I keep failing? And it's kind of ironic because, in this introduction that Chris has blessed me with, and these words that I've heard from Chris and others that talk about the giftings that they see in me, it's kind of ironic because of today's topic and how I still feel that question, why can't I get it right? What's wrong? Why do I keep failing? And I mean, this question, it's not just found in the church. I think almost everybody struggles with this question. They want to do the right thing, like Paul is saying in chapter 7 of Romans. I want to do what is good, but I try to do good things. But what I end up doing is bad things, even though I want to do good things. I grew up as the firstborn son of a pastor. And so maybe you can even kind of see how this question pairs with that upbringing. There's a kind of high standard for being a pastor and also for being the son of a pastor, the firstborn son. When you think of pastor, you kind of think of somebody who's pure, who doesn't probably swear, drink, or smoke, or do any of these kind of classic sins. They're a good person. They do the right thing. They don't do the wrong thing. They do what they're supposed to do. And that is what I felt that as a kid, as the son of somebody who's a pastor. As a 4 or 5-year-old kid, I'm feeling this heavy expectation that I think we can all feel in the church, being people who are under, it seems like, a big expectation to do the right thing. And we can feel like Paul, I want to do the right thing, but somehow I feel like I'm not able to do it. And I just remember, like, as a kid, Phillip, you need to be pure, right? You don't do anything impure. You need to be pure. And you need to be a kind person. You need to help people and be loving and be flexible, and you need to be kind and not selfish. You need to be selfless. And I mean, I'm just thinking back to this 4 or 5-year-old kid. What does a weight like that feel like? I mean, how does a kid process something like that? And I can't help, but think, man, is that kid asking, well, what's wrong with me? I need to be pure, but what about me when I mess up deserves harshness from people? And there was harshness in my upbringing when the almighty rules were broken. What about me makes people angry when I fail? Or what about me disappoints people? And I was very, very conscious of what the rules were and very scared not to break them. Just clinging to the rules and so terrified of breaking them. And I didn't entirely know what I was scared of, but it was terrifying to me. So I followed the rules, and I did pretty well. I was an obedient kid. If you think of a pastor's kid, somebody who's a good kid who's obedient and does the right thing, like I would have been that kid. Very obedient, followed the rules, and in youth group, in church, in like Bible studies, I knew how to talk about the Bible. I knew how to say insightful things through the Bible, through the text. I could come out with kind of a nice nugget of wisdom like you would expect a pastor's kid to do. I prayed. I tried to be a good example to my younger brothers, which was really important to me. I wanted to help them so that they could follow the rules too. I was pure. I took leadership roles, because that's what I felt like I should do. And I did well in school and all of that. I felt like I was pure, I was kind, and I was selfless, and I was doing it, and I was okay. I was doing it right. I had all these expectations, but I was fulfilling them. I was okay. The world isn't ending yet because I'm doing it right. I'm following the rules. But there were these moments when I would hear the whisper of failure in the back of my head, like, yeah, you may be doing this right now, but remember when you didn't? Last time? You remember this? Do you think you're going to do this forever? I remember like once I got really angry and I hit my brother, and I was just completely mortified. I was panicked, and I was weeping to my mom, like saying, "Mom, you need to discipline me. I did this terrible thing. You have to make this I was panicked because what had I just done?" And that whisper of failure, that shadow in the back of my head that says, "See?" As a kid, I struggled with reading my Bible. Like, I know I said that I could read the Bible and come out with like a nice nugget of wisdom or whatever. But actually, largely, I didn't really want to read the Bible, and largely, I didn't read it. And I love the Bible. I still struggle to read it. I don't know if any of you have that struggle, but it can be something that's very indicting. So you're a Christian and you don't like to read the Bible? Like, what's wrong with you? And that's what I felt. Like, wow, I'm a Christian, a person of the text, and I don't really read it. I should, but I don't. What does that mean about me? So I had those moments, small moments from when I was a kid up through high school, largely following the rules, feeling like I was okay, kind of maybe hanging on by a thread. And I didn't feel that I was hanging on by a thread in that time. But when I went off to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago for my college, my 4 years there, things kind of started to fall apart. And failure became the anthem of my life rather than, it's okay, I'm following the rules, I'm winning, I'm kind of doing okay. No, failure became the anthem in that time. So at Moody, you have to go to chapel 3 times a week. And in chapel, you listen to like somebody bring a talk. And a lot of the times, they would talk about like evangelism. Okay? And at Moody, I actually had assignments that told me to evangelize, literally graded assignments where I would have to go out and tell people about Jesus or the gospel or something. And I was completely terrified to do that. Like, I at a coffee shop, just trying to do my assignment, just looking over, like, is this a guy that I want to talk to? Like, I don't want to go over there and talk to him. And I'm staring at him, and he's kind of looking at me, and then I look away. And it's like, I was terrified to go and talk to this guy. And I mean, it was awkward, but more than awkward, like, I was mortified. And then I'm listening in chapel of these guys who are like, man, if you really love Jesus, you'll go out there and you'll tell everybody about him. You can't help but do it. And I'm like, can't help but do it. I can't help but be terrified to do it. And I sat there in chapel, and the shame washed over me. Like, what is wrong with me? What? I'm a Christian, or am I? Because Christians are supposed to love Jesus, right? And that's supposed to make them want to tell people about Jesus. But not only do I not tell people about Jesus, I'm terrified of the thought of it. I don't even want to do it. So they're saying, you should evangelize. And you should also want to. I don't want to, and I don't. I'm failing on both accounts. So I was just left with this impression, right? This weight, this burden over my head, this backpack that I just carried, this heavy, heavy weight. Like, what's the problem? And God's not the problem, right? Because he's never the problem. It's me. I'm the problem. I can't do it. I fail. I'm not enough. In that time, I journaled a lot during that time because I had so much emotional turmoil. And this entry kind of encapsulates what I was feeling during that time. And just kind of brace yourselves. This is kind of dark stuff. I wrote, I suck. I am nothing but a selfish, prideful, self-centered, self-seeking, attention-grabbing sinner of a Christian. I don't love people. I don't seek God. I sit here in His grace as if it's new chains. I sit in my own prison of self-interest, and I've made God my prison guard. The people outside care. Everybody else is doing the right thing. Everybody else is evangelizing. The people outside serve and want to serve. They love while I sit in jealousy, which is just another extension of my selfishness. It's like, I can't help but do anything but be selfish, be a failure. I can't do it. I want to do good things. I want to be a good person. But I keep doing the things I don't want to do and keep showing that I'm not the person that I want to be, that I'm not a good person. I'm not pure. I'm not kind. And I'm very selfish. So, what's the good news for a person like that? What's the good news that a person who's stuck in that, what's the news, what's the word that person needs to hear? And I wrestled with this question. When Chris asked me to preach, I knew I wanted to preach about the problem that there's people who want to do good things, who want to do what's right, who want to be good people, but they fail. But I didn't know the word that I needed to bring. I didn't know the word that God has for you and the word that God has for me. I was stuck in this bind. What is the good news for somebody who's stuck, not being able to do what they want to do, who's stuck doing the things that they don't want to do? What's the good news? I could say, here's the good news. When you were a kid, Phillip, you were trying really hard to do the right thing, and you were doing it by your own power, right? You were trying really hard, you were buckling down, you were white-knuckling it. But what you need to do is trust Jesus, let go and let God, that Christian cliche. And then you can finally start doing the right thing. That solves my problem, right? I need a better method. I need something that's going to work so that I can start doing the things I want to do and stop doing the things I don't want to do. Is that the good news? Is that the good news that I needed to hear? Finally, I can do what I need to do. Praise God. Finally, I can do what I need to do, right? That's good news. That's good news, isn't it? Finally, I can become valuable. Finally, I can do the right things that will make me a good person. Yes. Sigh of relief, right? And if somebody told me that in that place, I would have thought, man, this is amazing news. Finally, I can do what I've always wanted to do. I can be a good person. I can do the right things. I can stop failing. Yes. If Jesus would have walked into my life in that moment and said, Phillip, we can both agree you're not really doing this that well, but here's the good news, I have a better way. I came so that you can stop doing the wrong things and start doing the right things. I have new power for you, right? I have the Spirit of God inside you, and the Spirit of God will give you the power to do the right thing. Yes. But is that good news? Is that really good news? And we have this problem, right? The Romans 7 problem. We can just pull that up again here. I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature, for I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For what I do is not the good I want to do, no. The evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. So we got this problem. I do what I don't want to do, and I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. It's this problem up here. But I started to think, maybe there's a deeper problem. A problem that hides beneath the surface of this problem that we think, I can't do what I want to do, and I do the things that I don't want to do. There's a problem below that. The problem isn't really that we can't do the things we want to do, okay? Hear that, okay? That's not really the problem, okay? The problem isn't that you can't do the things that you want to do, and you can't stop doing the things that are evil. That's not the problem. There's something deeper. The problem isn't that we need a better method which will allow us to do the right things and finally be good people. The problem is that we think we can do that in the first place. So what I want to tell you that's impossible, okay? And I'm going to prove it to you if you haven't already seen that from my own story. The problem isn't that we keep failing and can't do the right thing. The problem is thinking that doing the right thing will make us worthy, good, and valuable people. Let's go back to my example, right? If Jesus walked into my life when I was failing and feeling like I'm just a complete failure and I can't do it. If Jesus walks into that and says, hey, Phillip, yep, we're agreeing, you can't do it, okay? But it's because you're using the wrong method. Here's a better method, okay? And now you can start doing those things and start finally not failing and succeeding. What's not happening in that scenario? Jesus isn't challenging the fact that I believe that doing things makes me a good and valuable person. That's understood. He's saying, yeah, that's right. Doing good things does make you a good and valuable person. You're just not doing the good things. You need a better way to start doing good things. The problem isn't the belief that I need to prove that I'm worthy and valuable. The problem is that I just need to do it better. And that's not good news. I mean, is good news, hey, you're failing, you need to do it better. That doesn't sound like good news. That's terrible news. That's terrifying news. That's more chains. That's not grace. That's not the gospel. It's more chains. It's more bondage. It's more slavery. I haven't challenged the belief that doing good things is what makes me valuable. I've just confirmed it. I haven't changed the fact that you hate yourself and you have to prove that you're not worthy of hatred. People, this is not good news. This is probably the worst news that you could ever be told in your life. Hear this, all right? The good news of the gospel is not that because of Jesus, we can finally do the things that will make us valuable and good people. The good news of the gospel is that you already are, no matter what you do. Okay? So let me prove this to you, okay? Why rule keeping doesn't work. Why it's a bankrupt method. I'm going to say, this is kind of my thesis, okay? Rule keeping, following the law, okay, its starting line is failure, its demand is perfection, and the result is accusation. Its starting line is failure, its demand is perfection, and the result is accusation. So what does it mean that the starting point is failure? Think about this for a second, right? So I come to the law because the law or rule keeping promises me that if you do these things, you're finally going to be not a failure, okay? So I come to the law because the law can fix me. But if I believe that I need to be fixed, then I admit that I'm broken, right? So I'm just by virtue of coming to the starting line, I'm already admitting that I'm a failure, right? Because if the way that I fix the fact that I am a failure is by following the law, then I already believe that I'm a failure. It's like I'm showing up to the starting line with my feet chained together. Failures fail, right? I'm setting myself up for failure. The law says, do me, okay? The law says, follow this, and you won't be a failure. But the reason that sounds good to me is because I believe I'm a failure. So I'm starting right there. I'm starting at the belief, Phillip, you're a failure. Its starting line is failure. Okay, but it gets worse. It gets worse because its demand is perfection. Okay? The law isn't going to mess around and give you grace when you fall, okay? It's not stupid like that. It's got a harder backbone than that, right? It's not some it's going to point its finger and make sure you know that you need to follow it perfectly, right? One moment of impurity, like you want to be pure, you do one impure thing, you're impure forever. You're guilty of transgressing the entire law. One act of unkindness, and you'll never be a kind person ever again. If you're selfish once, you're selfish forever. You have to follow the law perfectly every time, all the time, without a break, without rest. That's it. And if you break one little commandment, you're guilty of breaking the entire thing. This is what Paul means when he says, Galatians 3:10, for all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. As it is written, cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of the law. It's not you do some things sometimes. You know, these things you need to do, and you need to do them pretty okay. It's no, you need to do everything, and you need to do it right every time, all the time. Its starting line is failure, its demand is perfection, and the result is accusation. So I move to take my first step, right? And immediately I fall because my feet are chained together. And then out comes the accusation, the pointing of the finger. See, I told you. I was right about you. You're a failure. You can't do it. I was right. Accusation. Its starting line is failure. Its demand is perfection. And the result is accusation. This is why Paul writes, therefore, no one will be declared righteous in God's sight by the works of the law. It's literally impossible. What does Paul say? He says, rather, okay, no one's going to be declared righteous. Instead, through the law, we become conscious of our sin. Okay, if the law is good at one thing, it's showing you that you can't do it, that you fail, that you don't measure up to perfection, and the law is amazing at pointing the finger. And Paul is like, yeah, that's kind of the only thing the law is good at. The law is very quick to point the finger. He says, through the law we become conscious of our sin. The law makes us know that we're sinners. Through the law, nobody is going to be declared righteous because what the law does is show you that you're a sinner. So it's impossible. Again, I want to tell you, the problem is not that you don't have the right method, the right plan to do the things that you want to do. The problem isn't that you can't do the right things. The problem is that you believe that by doing the right things, you become a good person. Law, it's not the answer, okay? It's actually part of the problem. The starting line is failure, the demand is perfection, and the result is accusation. You start as a failure, and when you don't measure up to the demand of perfection, the finger comes out, condemns you. See, you are a failure. It's this never-ending circle, and it always results in accusation, always, every time. But the good news of the gospel is not that you have to do things to become valuable, it's that you already are, period. That's it. That's it. This is the gospel. Let's read Romans 7, verse 6. But now, by dying to what once bound us, we have been released from the law. So that's good news, because Paul says the way of the law, it leads to accusation, condemnation, without fail, every time. But he says we have been released from the law, so we serve in a new way, in the new way of the Spirit, and not the old way of the written code. For sin shall not be your master, because you are not under law, but under grace. We have a new starting point. We have a new gospel, the gospel of grace. What's the good news? What's the good news? It's not that you have to do things to become valuable. It's that you already are, no matter what you do. We have a new starting place where the gospel of the law, the kind of guilt trip gospel, it started us at failure, it demanded perfection, and the result was accusation. The gospel of grace starts you at worthiness and valuable, that you're loved no matter what you do. It starts you at infinite worth and value, and its gift is grace, and the result is life. Let's read out of Romans 5, starting in verse 6. You see, at the right time, when we were still powerless, right? At the right time, when the world was entirely living this Romans 7, this I do what I don't want to do, I can't do what I want to do. While we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. While we were still powerless, Christ died for the powerless. It's not that he's looking and saying, hey, when are you guys going to become not powerless? He says, he looks at our powerlessness, and as it's increasing, at the right time, when it's like, wow, could this get any worse? Jesus is like, I died for the powerless, for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous man, though for a good man, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were sinners, Christ died for us. New starting place. New starting place. Jesus says, so you kind of got to understand this, right? We think we're sinners, but God sees us and says, I think you're deserving of everlasting love that will never change no matter what you do. We say sinner, God says, I've loved you forever. I created you and I said that you were good. I said it is good. Do you think that changes by anything that you do? And he proved it on the cross when he stretched his arms out for us and says, this is what I will do for you. The law starts us out at a new starting point. Freedom and infinite value. Its starting line is infinite value. Okay, and its gift is grace. Not perfection anymore. Hear this. It's not the acute accusation that points the finger and says, when you fall, you're a failure, and pushes you down further. It's the hand that reaches and brings you back up. You can fail without being a failure, because you're starting from a new point. It's not the accusation of the finger saying, see, I was right, you failed, and that means you're a failure. God says, you were never a failure. You can get back up. Not perfection, grace. And the result is life instead of death. Can you imagine a world where we didn't have to prove that we're valuable and good people anymore. Just imagine a world where you start from the point that you're already loved, that you're already infinitely valuable, and that you have worth and dignity no matter what. That's your starting point. I don't have to prove that anymore. Imagine growing up in a family where your parents, instead of saying, here's the commandment, here's the rules, follow this, and I'll be proud of you. Follow this, and you won't be a disappointment. Follow this, and it'll be okay, and I will show you my favor, and you will be my son. Imagine a starting point that said, you're already my son, and you can't do anything about that. You're a son, you are a daughter, no matter what. You start from the place of your parents just loving to be with you and adoring you and being in your presence. Imagine approaching God in the way where we don't have to prove that we're righteous and right, where we don't have to say, here, God, look, I've built this thing up right. I've followed these rules. From my youth, I've followed them. I've done the right thing, and see, I am worthy. And God says, what do you mean? What are you trying to prove? I've already said that you're valuable, you're worthy, and I love you. I adore you. There's nothing that you can do to change that. Imagine a world where the demand isn't perfection, but that when we fail, it's not the finger that's pointed at us, but a hand comes out, picks us up, and runs along with us, spurring us on towards the goal. Not to prove that we're not evil, terrible people, but to run and just enjoy God's pleasure. It's okay when I fall. Like when you fall under the law, it's really not okay because you have this existential crisis that, wow, I was right about myself, the law was right about me. When I fail, that means I'm a failure. It just shows what I am. But imagine a world where when you fall, you can get back up because it doesn't mean you're a failure. Wouldn't that be a world where life thrives? Folks, if shame and rule keeping are the ways you are motivating yourself to do the right thing, if that's the way and the path that you choose, then you will always be trapped. And Christ says you're free. But the good news is that there is another way. There is another starting point. When we begin already as people who are loved forever, no matter what, when we start the race as people who are worthy, valuable, and infinitely adored by God, we have the blessing to be able to run free from condemnation and free from accusation. We don't have to prove that we're valuable anymore. That's not the motivation. We don't have to prove anything. The good news of the gospel isn't that we can finally prove that we're valuable people. It's the good news that we already are, and we don't have anything to prove. God, thank you for that new starting point. I think, thank you for this good news that turns the old way on its head, that says, you don't have to make yourself valuable. You already are in my sight because of what you've done. And from the beginning, not even in Jesus, because God has always said, it is good. It is good. It is very good. Lord, I just pray that we would just be so impressed with how much you adore us, how much you just desire to have a relationship with us. that we could feel your love as the prodigal son and the elder brother, that my love just overflows for you. Leave us with the word, I adore you. It's not about proving to me that you're worthy. You already are. Period, full stop. That's it. Praise be to God. Praise be to God who calls things that are not as though they were, and makes people who thought they were nothing and tells them that we are infinitely loved by God. Leave with this. Leave with this. Grace and peace. Grace and peace. You're dismissed.